The American author and playwright James Baldwin once observed, "I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain." Maria Francesca Cabrini was born 170 years ago. She was the youngest of 13 children. Her parents were two poor farmers. Only four of the children, including Francesca, would survive beyond adolescence. She was weak as a child, not very strong. She would have a lot of health issues, not only as a child, but continue on throughout her adulthood. Her parents died when she was only 20 years old, and she wanted to be a nun, but the order that taught her rejected her, saying they did not feel that she was strong enough and able enough to join their community. Francesca Cabrini knew a lot of pain in her life, a lot of difficulty in life. She didn't mask it with indifference, by turning inward, by being resentful, by being hateful toward other people. No, instead, she opened her heart to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And in opening her heart to Jesus, she realized that out of her pain would come her calling. So if a religious order wasn't going to accept her, she would form her own religious order, an order that she called the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Even as a nun, Mother Cabrini, as she would later be known, she experienced a lot of roadblocks put up by men in the church, bishops, priests, people who told her, men who told her, no, we know better, you don't know what you're talking about. She could have become annoyed, impatient, maybe even hateful toward them, resentful of their disrespect of her, but she didn't allow that to mask the pain. She knew the words of Jesus that we heard in today's gospel. Whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it. Whoever loses it will save it. She knew that if she let go of the pain, let go of the terrible things that people were doing to her, that she could let Jesus enter into her heart, and she could truly live as a disciple in the world. If someone closed a door in Mother Cabrini's life, another one opened because she persevered. She continued on. So she travels not to China, but she travels to the United States. She wanted to go to China as a missionary, and the Pope told her, I think you should go to the United States. There's a lot of Italian immigrants living in urban centers, and they need missionaries to help them. So in 1889, she and 6 members of her community sailed across the Atlantic to the United States. In major cities in this country, these Italian immigrants were looked down upon. They were not welcomed. They had many doors shut in their face because, number one, they were immigrants. They weren't born in this country, so they had a prejudice against them. They were Italian, so they were looked down upon because of the country of origin. And they were Catholic. There was a great prejudice at that time against Catholics in many urban areas in our country, and they experienced this. But it was Mother Cabrini who came to them, and she opened the door. She founded 67 institutions that helped provide health care, aid, education, religious formation for these immigrants. She wanted those who knew the pain of prejudice, who experienced doors being closed in their face, not to become indifferent, not to become resentful, not to become hateful, but rather to have their heart to become more like the heart of Jesus. It was Mother Cabrini's open heart and her open hands that helped these immigrants know their dignity, their worth, and she helped them achieve the American dream, as well as a deepening of their own Catholic faith. Mother Cabrini became the first American citizen to be canonized. She became a citizen a few years after she came into this country. She was the first American to be named a saint. There's a great story about Mother Cabrini. As a child, she had a great fear of water. a great fear of drowning. And that accompanied her into her adult life. But that fear did not overwhelm her. It did not overwhelm her. She actually traveled back and forth the Atlantic Ocean over 30 times. She knew that if she would lose her life to Christ, she would find the strength to deal with whatever fears and pain that she experienced personally, within her community, and within this country. She never allowed fear to close her heart. I'm thinking right now about another fear, a night of unspeakable terror and sorrow. On this day, on this evening, 5 years ago, terrorists went through the city of Paris and they murdered 130 people. 416 individuals were injured. In those hours of terrible chaos and panic, streets were blocked off by police. People were desperate to find a way to safety, to get to a place where they wouldn't be shot at, where they would feel they wouldn't be attacked. They tried to get home. They were filled with fear, with nowhere to go. And then people living in the area understood what was happening. And they began to want these people to know that they could come to their house and find safety. And so on social media, they used the hashtag Porte Ouverte, which means the door is open. And they kept sending this out so that anyone who was in pain or worry or upset or fear could know that their door was open and they would find refuge. Porte Ouverte. The door is open. That's the world that Mother Cabrini created, one in which she always wanted to provide an open door, a safe place where people could find freedom and hope and refuge, and always the presence of Christ, faith in Christ. 5 years after these attacks, our world still experiences hatred and divisions. And if we're willing to really stop and think about the divisions and the hatred, and we look with the eyes of faith, with our hearts, we see that there is tremendous pain in people's lives that is masked by that hatred. But also on this day, we can never forget those who died in Paris and the hundreds of thousands who on that evening and the days that followed not only opened their doors, but throughout the world opened their hearts in solidarity. Those who would be followers of Christ must, as hard as it is, live with their hearts open. And that's not always easy to do, right? What fears have you experienced? What maybe doors have shut? What difficulties have you endured that have gotten so deeply into you that maybe you've sensed that they've created an unkindness in you, maybe an impatience, maybe an intolerance for other people, maybe even a hatred? To whom have you closed your door? Maybe it's somebody you know well. Maybe it's somebody that you just see in the news. What fears do you have in which you close your door to hope, to a new beginning? The heart of Jesus is always filled with understanding and with compassion. And we might insist, he doesn't understand. But he does. He does. Whoever seeks to save their life will lose it, but those who lose their life will find it. It's the idea of letting go. And by letting go, it doesn't mean that you have to cross the ocean if you're afraid of drowning. It doesn't mean you have to skydive or be so out of your comfort zone that you're sweating and that you're shaking in fear. No, today, most especially in the time that we live in today, all that we who are the followers of Christ have to do is slowly and carefully open our heart to him. And in doing so, we will find ourselves opening our door to others.